Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of those videos where I talk about updates on Dwarf Fortress coming from Toady1 and KitFox. This is the first patch of the new year, which is fitting because it's a very baby-related patch. There's several baby-related bugs fixed in this patch, because it's the baby patch of the year. That's about as far as I can go with this bit, so I'm gonna leave it where it is. Of course, this is Dwarf Fortress, so there's going to be a lot of interesting interactions. In this case, there are two separate things involving little infants and their mothers trying to find them once they've been dropped. I mean, the actual key here is just simply don't drop your baby, but if you must find them, there's some complicated behaviors involving that. We'll dive into that in a moment, but first we have a message from Tarn and KitFox. Before I read their message, however, I'm going to give a little bit of context. Recently, Dwarf Fortress added a series of portraits for various different kinds of animals. And there was some criticism involving these portraits not quite fitting with the vibe of the rest of the game, which honestly is fair feedback. And KitFox has responded to that criticism and feedback in this message. We heard your feedback about the portraits, and updated a bunch of them that were feeling inconsistent with the tone of the game. I'm still getting the hang of making art direction decisions, and wasn't as careful as I should have been. So, Rice is good, and I talked more about the portrait art, and I gave him more time to rework them. Although we always welcome feedback, it was disappointing to see disrespectful and disparaging comments directed at Rice is good, who is simply working within the confines of his role. And so I ask that folks be more kind to the dev team in future feedback. I also want to clarify that we do not use generative AI for Dwarf Fortress in any step of development. We make things that make things, but we make them by hand. As I've been reading this, you're seeing the before and after of the changes made to the animal sprites. Honestly, the ones on the left are just a little bit more cartoony. The ones on the right are a bit more realistic and kind of fit the game better. I will say that it kind of feels like a first pass, second pass kind of thing, where you got your first pass, and if it doesn't all quite line up, well, do a second pass. I know that KitFox has already confirmed in a post on their Discord that they're totally fine with you taking the old art and putting them up on the workshop as an alternative pack if you want them. So if there's certain pieces of art, like that giraffe art, that people are particularly fond of, you can absolutely keep them in your game by simply swapping out a JPEG. Or PNG. I am actually not sure off the top of my head. Who knows, it might even be a bitmap image. But realistically, I have to say that this is part parcel with being on the internet these days. I get accused of being an AI voice sometimes. Artists get accused of not doing the actual work. Musicians get stared at with scrutiny as to whether or not they're creating original art or not. The state of the world is honestly pretty sad that this is something that we need to clarify and confirm when people get concerned about the quality of somebody's work. But I do want to actually pull something out of the comments section on this news post, because I think that our very first commenter on Steam actually sums up my feelings on this quite concisely. When a couple of portraits are the biggest drama in the community, I guess we have things pretty good. Love both versions of the art, and continue to love the game. I tend to agree. I think there are portions of the original portraits that I prefer to see in the game, and then there are some that I think are quite superior now. What do you think of the before and afters? Regardless, enough putzing around, let's dive into those patch notes. Toady writes, "Here's a patch with lots of routine fixes, and lots of new portraits, and some updated portraits. Small experimental beasts now have their own colorful graphics to match the Forgotten Beasts, and let's dive in. There is now new procedural graphics for small experiments, new animal portraits, and some new full-body animal tiles. Can pop up basic small animal sheets to view portraits and read descriptions for small animals. Offering place and display furniture and nest boxes show the proper item materials when placed as buildings now. Previously, they were all one palette, boring looking. They now use proper list icons for creatures when choosing animals in Embark or Adventure setup, meaning you won't see weird off-centered portraits when scrolling. They've added further box highlighting for Chosen, Hero, and Ordinary selection in Classic. It looks better now. They added an error log for unrecognized tile graphics, rectangle tokens, which I assume that means that it'll be listed in the error log if you have no graphics appear in a situation. Properly sized giant flying gray squirrel list icons and corpses, and they've fixed upright weapon trap display errors, meaning if there's a weapon displayed in a weapon trap, it'll look like it's in the weapon trap instead of sitting on top of the weapon trap. And Minimap now properly updates on certain recenter commands. Before, it would take like a few movements of the camera to make the minimap look like it was in the right location. It was always like a tile or two behind. Now it's caught up. And now we move on to the general updates. Stopped mood dwarves from choosing inaccessible workshops and causing path cancellation lag, which means maybe now a creature could go into a strange mood while walled off like my were creatures and not slow the game down, which is lovely. They can just die in peace. Dwarves no longer try to store, pile, and tomb items which are located outside of their burrows. Dwarves no longer try to store carried objects outside of their burrows. Yay! Stopped dwarves with no working grasps from trying to store owned objects and excess equipment. That's great. Made armor appear again on many non-sieging units where it was missing, which is even better. Mothers seeking lost infants no longer respect burrows, but do respect chains. Mothers no longer seek ghostly babies, which is probably the patch note of the whole list. Mothers essentially would get stuck in an infinite loop if their baby was killed and came back as a ghost. The mother would be unable to do anything except for focus on her poor child. Frankly, the only thing that's grimmer than that is a mother insisting on carrying around a zombified baby, because they will literally carry that baby until the day they die, which might still be the grimmest thing I've ever seen in Dwarf Fortress. If an egg hatches and the mother is assigned to a zone, like a pasture, the baby is now assigned in the zone, meaning you're not going to have to pasture the 50-something cave crocodiles that you just birthed because they are not assigned to the zone and are now spreading around your entire fortress. Lovely little quality of life thing. Soldiers given an order while hauling will now drop their hauled job items instead of taking them along on duty, which is great. They won't steal my boulders anymore. Dwarves heading off to meetings will drop hauled items from canceled jobs, even better. Dwarves are more likely to handle their hauled drink-related items after drinking. Appropriate buildings now stop rain and snow, meaning you don't get rained on indoors anymore. Added an indication during assignment of specific military items whether the item is already assigned elsewhere. Animal traps can catch subterranean water creatures, like cave lobsters again. Cave lobsters can be processed in the fishery, and their shell can be used for shell crafts, which is kind of cool, actually. Creatures that leave statue corpses now leave statues of themselves rather than of random creatures, which is kind of cool, but I kind of liked the fact that bronze colossi could be like a giant eagle, and in my mind, that's what I imagined the form of that giant bronze colossus being. Oh well. Anyways, prophets and other religious people with prophetic belief systems will no longer include incorrect beliefs in their greetings. That's an adventure mode patch. Stopped pedestals and display cases from being allowed to display themselves. They've made mussels and oysters stop appearing on land when animals root around near oceans. And they've stopped a few illegal werebeast types from being created. I want to know what a legal werebeast is, let alone an illegal one. They added a visual button to back out of art element creation and deletion. Fix conflicting hauling and hotkeys and key bindings, and you may have to restore defaults or update it yourself if you have custom bindings. Specified amount created in some job names. Fixed some item descriptions and grammar. Fixed broken child baby strings in certain contexts like action reports. Cleaned up procedural creature text a bit. Fixed incorrect name for the coral material. Fixed improper text for mythical dream objects. Giant and animal person variants of pool creatures will now appear in Savage Lakes. That bug was fixed, which is good to hear, meaning the world of giant turtles can now exist once more. And fixed a few typos with key binding text. All in all, I agree with that number one commenter. Dwarf Fortress's biggest problem being a couple of portraits being controversial is a pretty good place for the game to be at as a whole. And honestly, there's a lot of very well-needed patches in these notes. I also really want to say thank you to Tarn and Bay 12 Games specifically for expanding upon the patch notes. For years, Dwarf Fortress would have patch notes, but they never would be that expansive, so it's really nice to see these consistent little routine patches with very full, complete feeling patch notes. I'm not sure if a process has changed behind the scene or if Tarn is just getting better at note-taking, but frankly, it's possibly one of my favorite changes as of late in the game's development. For me, a few highlights from this patch. I'm very happy to see dwarves with no like usable limbs can now once again put stuff away. All of the job canceling and dropping related patches outside of burrows is very good. Same with not hauling items to places they shouldn't be. That is very nice to see. I won't have to do as much of the grab a dwarf who's running with a boulder, forbid the boulder, unforbid the boulder to make them drop it sort of thing. A lot of little under the hood quality of life things in this patch. I think this is a really good one. I look forward to seeing more of these. Do you have a favorite patch note amongst these? Aside from the obvious baby ghosts no longer get seeked by their mothers? Regardless, I'm currently very deep in the editing chamber on a video, as well as working on filming an additional video for the channel. Hopefully you'll see one of those, if not both of them, sooner than later. Thank you very much for watching. Keep an eye on this space, and I'll see you in the next one.